step softly. The door you just walked through only opens for people who know what it's like to smile next to someone and feel a draft behind their eyes. This place is quiet, but it listens. Tonight's theme is the lie you marry. Husbands who keep tidy stories on the surface while something colder moves underneath secrets. Double lives, and the slow realization that trust can be a trap. You'll hear confessions about passwords no one should find, basements no one was meant to open, late-night drives that never led where they claimed. These are not haunted houses. These are kitchens, bedrooms, and text threads, ordinary rooms where truth fails and the floor gives a little under your feet. If you're used to scary stories, prepare for a different kind of bruise. These don't chase you down the hallway. They sit at the table and call you by a name that isn't yours. When they're done, sleep will feel like a door you'd rather not close. Most people watch and drift on without subscribing. If you want more nights like this, quiet, careful, honest in the worst way, don't forget to stay. Tell me something before we begin. What time is it where you are right now? And where are you watching from? Leave it in the comments so we know who's awake with us. You might want to leave a light on. Here are tonight's encounters. The night it started, I wasn't looking for a fight. I just wanted to know why my husband's phone kept lighting up after midnight. He was asleep beside me, his back turned, breathing slow and heavy. The glow from his screen kept flashing across the ceiling every few minutes, soft, bluish light cutting through the dark. I stared at it, waiting for him to roll over, for him to silence it. But he didn't. Finally, I reached across the bed, my heart thudding so loud it felt like it was echoing in the room. The phone buzzed again, same notification tone, same hidden preview. Message received, no name, just that dot. When I picked it up, the screen was locked. I tried the password, his birthday, wrong. Our anniversary, wrong. Our dog's name, wrong. After the third attempt, the screen flashed red. Try again in 30 seconds. I froze, still holding the phone in the dark. And that's when I heard his voice. "You shouldn't do that," he whispered behind me. I nearly dropped it. I turned, and he was sitting upright now, eyes half open but not quite awake, staring straight ahead, his face blank. The kind of expression that doesn't belong to anyone. Then he lay back down, turned away, and went still again. The next morning, I acted like nothing had happened. He made coffee, kissed me on the forehead, and told me he'd be late again that night. Meetings, he said. That word used to sound normal, but lately, it made my stomach twist. He'd been different for months, quieter, more private. He changed his passwords, kept his phone face down, and took calls outside. He'd step out on the porch, whispering, "Yeah, I can talk now." Before sliding the door shut, at first, I told myself it was work stress. Everyone gets distant sometimes. But then little things started happening. The first one was small, the feeling of being watched. I'd walk past the living room window at night, and the reflection wouldn't line up right. My own face staring back, but off by a second, like it lagged out another night. I smelled something burning when I got home, a sharp, metallic temps, like scorched wires. He said he'd lit a candle, but there were no candles. 2 weeks later, I asked him straight out at dinner, "Why can't I have your password?" He didn't look up from his plate. "Because you don't need it." That's not an answer. He finally met my eyes. "You don't trust me? I just want to know why you keep hiding things." He smiled, a small, strange smile that didn't reach his eyes. Some things aren't meant to be shared, even between husband and wife. That night, I couldn't sleep. His phone was on the nightstand, face down again. I stared at it for an hour before I got up, quietly, and walked out to the kitchen. The air felt heavy, still, but charged, like a storm was about to break. I sat at the table and tried to remember the man I married. The way he used to talk to me like I was part of his world, not an intruder in it. Now, it felt like he lived in another house, one layered beneath ours. Invisible, but close enough to hear. A few nights later, I heard it again, the same tone, the same midnight buzz. This time, I was ready. He was in the shower, water running hard. I grabbed the phone from the counter and opened it, still locked. But the new iOS update had changed the keypad animation, slow enough that when his wet hand reached for it, I caught the reflection of his password in the mirror behind him. I memorized it. 6 digits. When he went to bed, I waited until he was asleep. Then I typed it in. The screen unlocked. No messages, no apps, no photos. Just one folder on the home screen. My finger hovered over it. I tapped it open to hundreds of video files, all with dates and times. The most recent one said day 213, bedroom 21:07 a.m. My stomach went cold. I tapped it. The video showed me lying in bed, sleeping. The camera angle was high, above the door. My body shifted, my arm moved, my breathing steady. Then, at one point, I turned over, and in the corner of the frame, behind me, someone else moved. Someone standing. The figure leaned down close to the bed, close enough to touch my hair, then straightened again and stepped out of view. My throat locked. I skipped back through the older files. Day 175, day 126, day 083, all the same. Me, sleeping, the same angle, the same shadow. Then I found one labeled before. It was dated 2 years before we even met. The video started in another bedroom, another woman sleeping. Same camera angle, same breathing, same quiet. Then, that same figure stepped into the frame. My husband. I slammed the phone down and stumbled back, knocking over a chair. My pulse was racing so fast I thought I'd pass out. I ran to the bedroom. He was sitting up in bed again, awake this time, just watching me. "You went through it," he said, not angry, just stating it. "What are those videos?" I shouted. "Who are those people?" He rubbed his eyes slowly, like I was interrupting something. "You weren't supposed to see that yet." "See what?" He stood up. "I was going to tell you soon. You're different from them." "Them?" I backed up. "What do you mean?" He smiled again. That same quiet, unnatural smile. "They always ask about the password. That's how I know. It's time." My voice broke. "Time for what?" He didn't answer. He just walked to the living room, calm as ever. The light from his phone glowed against his face. He opened the front door, looked back at me once, and said, "Don't try to follow." Then he left. I didn't move for hours. The house felt wrong without him, like a hotel room I'd been left behind in. I locked all the doors, checked the windows, and sat in silence until the sun came up. When morning came, I packed a bag and drove to my sister's place. I didn't tell her everything, just that we were fighting and I needed space. She believed me, she always did. But that first night at her place, I woke up to a notification on my phone. "New login detected on your account." It was from his city, from his device. Then, right after, another alert. One new video added to folder. I didn't open it. I deleted the email. But the damage was done. I couldn't stop thinking about it. About him. About the camera I'd never found. How many were there? Where were they? 3 days later, my sister went to work, and I decided to go back to the house, just to grab a few things. The moment I stepped inside, it smelled wrong. Not dusty, not abandoned, but faintly chemical, like cleaning fluid and burnt plastic. The walls looked off, too. Tiny holes near the corners, patched over, some of them fresh. I walked into the bedroom and froze. The mattress was gone, so were the nights, even the curtains. The only thing left was the bracket above the doorframe, the one where a smoke detector used to be. It wasn't a smoke detector. I could see the lens. My knees went weak. I pulled it down, wires still attached. Inside, there was a small black box, with a micro SD card. I pocketed it and ran to my car. I didn't even look back. At a gas station 2 towns over, I plugged the card into my laptop. There were only 2 files on it. The first was me again, sitting in the kitchen the night I confronted him, recorded from somewhere behind me. I could see myself holding his phone, my hands shaking. Then, from the corner of the frame, his shadow moved closer, watching. The second video was timestamped the day after he left. It showed the same empty bedroom, the one without furniture. The camera slowly panned down to the floor, and there, written in chalk, was a message. Day 214. She knows. I went to the police the next day, showed them everything, the videos, the messages, the recordings. They searched the house. Found nothing. No fingerprints, no hard drives, no sign anyone else had lived there at all. They said it looked like I'd been alone for months. They even showed me a photo from our lease records, only my name listed. The landlord said I'd been the only tenant since the day I moved in. When I insisted, they did a background check. No record of my husband under that name. No driver's license, no tax records, no job history. He didn't exist. I stayed at my sister's for a while after that, but I could feel myself unraveling. Every creak in the walls made me jump. Every shadow made my chest tighten. One night, when I couldn't sleep, I decided to scroll through my photos, just to remember what was real. Vacations, dinners, his face. Except, the more I looked, the more I realized something was off. In every photo, he was never quite in focus. A hand on my shoulder, but blurred. A reflection that didn't line up. In one, his shadow fell in the opposite direction from mine, and in the oldest picture, our wedding photo, his face looked different, slightly longer, sharper around the eyes. Not enough to notice unless you really stared, but once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. A week later, I got another email. No subject line, no text, just a file attachment. Day 301 bedroom, 3:14 a.m. I deleted it immediately, but that night, as I lay in bed, I felt it, the same sense of being watched, like air shifting behind me, like the room wasn't empty after all. I turned on my phone camera and slowly panned around the dark. Nothing. But when I switched to the front-facing camera, the screen flickered once, and I saw him standing right behind me, smiling. Then, the feed went black. The next morning, I threw the phone away, changed numbers, moved again. New apartment, new locks, new everything. I thought maybe that would be enough, but 2 nights ago, I got a call from an unknown number. I shouldn't have answered, but I did. There was no sound at first, just static. Then a faint breath, then his voice, calm and clear. "Wrong password," he said. I dropped the phone. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I called the police again, but the call record was blank. No number, no times. It wasn't in my history at all. Now, I don't use passwords anymore. No phone, no Wi-Fi, no locks. Because he always finds a way in when I try to keep him out. Sometimes, at night, I hear the soft click of a door somewhere in the apartment. Not a crash, not a bang, just a careful, practiced sound. And I tell myself it's nothing, that it's just the pipes, or the wind. But every morning when I wake up, my phone, the one I swore I threw away, is sitting on the nightstand again, face down, buzzing dot, and on the screen, just one notification. New video added to folder, you. I don't try to open it anymore, because I already know what it'll show me. Asleep, pretending not to hear him whisper the password in my ear. The first night I followed him, I didn't plan to. I just wanted to see where he went. It was past midnight, raining lightly, one of those thin, cold drizzles that sticks to your skin. He'd told me he was going for a quick drive to clear his head. That was something he'd started saying a lot lately. At first, I didn't think much of it. Everyone needs space. But lately, those drives had been longer, stranger. Sometimes he'd leave at 1 in the morning and not come back until 4. Sometimes he'd shower immediately when he got home, even though he said he'd just been thinking. That night, when he grabbed his keys and said, "Back soon," something in his tone made my stomach twist, so I waited 2 minutes, grabbed my hoodie, and slipped out behind him. The air was cold enough to sting. Our neighborhood was dead silent, every house dark, except ours. I kept my distance, just far enough to see the red glow of his taillights turning out of the street. He drove slow. Too slow for someone just trying to think. I followed without headlights at first. Heart hammering palms, slick against the wheel. The road cut through the outskirts of town. Long stretches of empty asphalt framed by skeletal trees. No traffic, no movement. Just the faint hum of his car in the distance. After about 15 minutes, he turned down an old service road I didn't even know existed, a cracked, narrow path running along the tree line. I parked a ways back and killed the engine. His brake lights flickered once, then went dark. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, waiting for something, anything. But the forest just stood there, black and silent. That's when I saw the second light, a small, bluish glow deeper in the trees. It blinked twice, then vanished. He was meeting someone. I was sure of it. I got out of the car. The gravel crunched under my shoes louder than I wanted. Every step made me flinch. The rain was steady now, tapping on leaves and my hood, echoing softly around me. I followed the faint trail of tire marks until I saw his car parked off the side of the road, engine off. Driver's door open. He wasn't inside. There was movement ahead. A dim light flickering between the trees, like a lantern swinging slowly. I crept closer, keeping my breath shallow. At first I thought it was a campfire, but it wasn't fire. It was a phone screen, my husband's phone, sitting on the hood of his car, playing a video on loop. It was me, sleeping. The date stamp in the corner said last night. I stumbled backward, nearly slipping in the mud. My pulse was pounding in my ears so hard I didn't hear him until he spoke. "You shouldn't be here." His voice came from behind me. I turned fast, too fast, and almost fell again. He was standing just outside the circle of light, half hidden by the trees. His clothes were soaked, his hair plastered to his forehead, but his expression was calm. "What are you doing?" I whispered. He stepped forward, one slow step at a time. "You followed me. Why are you filming me?" He tilted his head slightly, like the question confused him. "You move in your sleep. Sometimes you talk. I wanted to know what you were saying." "That's insane, Evan." He smiled faintly, that flat, polite smile he'd been using more often lately. "You said you missed when I used to stay up late with you. This is the only time you talk to me now." My skin crawled. That's not talking. That's a twig snapped, somewhere deeper in the woods. We both froze. Then, slowly, his eyes flicked over my shoulder. "You shouldn't have come here." I ran. I didn't wait to see what he meant. I tore through the trees, branches whipping my arms, rain stinging my face. My car was still on the road ahead, just a dark blur through the mist. I didn't dare look back until I was inside, with the doors locked. The forest was still, completely still. His car lights flicked on, then they went off again. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then I saw him walk out of the trees, calm and deliberate, holding something small in his hand. A flashlight, maybe, or his phone. He didn't come toward me. He just stood there, watching, until I drove off. He didn't come home that night. I didn't sleep. Every sound, the refrigerator hum, the pipes knocking made me jump. Around 3 in the morning, I heard a car door slam outside. But when I looked through the blinds, the driveway was empty. The next morning, his car was back, parked perfectly, like nothing had happened. He was in the kitchen, drinking coffee, his phone sitting right next to him. Same phone that had been playing the video of me. He looked up and smiled like nothing was wrong. "You were gone last night," he said. "So were you," I shot back. He nodded, almost amused. "Yeah, I go on drives. You know that." I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab his phone and smash it. But I didn't, because something about the way he spoke to calm, to measured, made me realize that whatever he was doing, it wasn't new. It had been happening for a long time. That night, I tried to leave. I packed a bag, called my sister, told her I was coming over. When I stepped outside, my tires were slashed. All four. He was sitting on the porch in the dark. "Going somewhere?" he asked. "Don't do this," I said. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You shouldn't have followed me." I felt tears burning in my eyes. "You're scaring me." He looked at me for a long time before saying softly, then stopped looking. I went back inside, locked myself in the bathroom and cried until morning. He started sleeping during the day after that. Said the drives helped him think better at night. He stopped going to work, stopped shaving, stopped pretending. Every night, I'd hear him leave. Then, maybe an hour later, I'd get a text. No words, just a short video file. Each one the same. Me, sleeping, from slightly different angles. I covered every vent, taped over every possible place a camera could be. But the videos kept coming. Sometimes they were from inside the house. Sometimes from outside, through the window. One night, the video showed me standing at the kitchen sink, looking out. Only, in the clip, there was someone standing behind me, tall, shadowy, just out of focus. When I turned around in real life, there was no one there. I finally told the police. They searched the house, checked for hidden devices, looked through his car. Nothing. They said maybe it was a domestic dispute. Maybe I was exaggerating due to stress. He was polite when they questioned him, helpful, even. He smiled the whole time. When they left, he stood in the doorway, looking at me with that same flat expression. "You really think they'll protect you?" he said quietly. "They don't even believe you." That night, I slept in the guest room and pushed the dresser against the door. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of a car engine idling outside. I peeked through the curtain. His car was there, headlights off, engine running. He sat inside, staring at the house. He didn't move, didn't get out, just watched. He stayed like that until sunrise. A week later, he stopped coming home entirely. His phone was disconnected, his car gone. I told myself it was over. I even started sleeping again, light, uneasy sleep, but sleep. Then one morning, I opened the front door and found a flash drive sitting on the welcome mat. No note, just the drive. I plugged it into my laptop before I could talk myself out of it. There were only 3 video files. The first showed him sitting in his car, staring at the camera. He didn't speak. He just smiled. The headlights flicked on, and for a split second, I saw something moving in the trees behind him. The second video was darker, low light, the camera shaking. It was aimed at our house, zooming slowly toward the window of our bedroom. Through the glass, I could see myself, asleep. But then, in the corner of the frame, a shadow moved, closer, leaning over me. The third video was just static, at least, I thought it was, until the faint sound came through, breathing, slow, uneven breathing, then a whisper. "You shouldn't have followed me. I moved out that week, new apartment, new locks, new number. My family said it was the right thing to do. They said he was gone, that he'd probably snapped and disappeared. For a while, it was quiet. I started to believe it was over. Then, last night, I came home from work and found dirt on the doormat. A small trail of it, like someone had scraped their shoes there. I brushed it off without thinking. A few hours later, as I was brushing my teeth, I noticed something on the bathroom counter. A car key. Not mine. I picked it up. It had a tiny engraved tag, a gas station logo from 3 towns over. The same one he used to stop at on those drives. When I stepped into the living room, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. There was a video attached. It was me, unlocking my apartment door earlier that evening. The clip ended with my phone sliding out of my pocket, the exact moment. It must have been filmed. My hands are shaking as I write this. I've called the police again, but they said there's nothing they can do unless he makes direct contact. It's almost 2 a.m. now, outside. I can hear the faint hum of an engine idling somewhere down the street. Every few seconds, the headlights sweep faintly across my window, then disappear, like someone circling. I keep telling myself it's just coincidence, that it's just a neighbor coming home late. But deep down, I know the sound of that car, and I know how long he can sit still, just watching, waiting for me to fall asleep. He always drives with his lights off when he's close, so I'll know it's him when the road outside goes completely dark. The first time I noticed him, I thought it was a mistake, a trick of light, a stranger in the background. It was 3 months after our wedding. We'd finally gotten around to printing the photos, the big, glossy ones meant to hang in the hallway. My husband, Daniel, had been working late all week, so I sat at the kitchen table alone, sorting through stacks of images, one by one. That's when I saw it, in the photo of us cutting the cake. There was a man standing behind Daniel's shoulder. He wasn't smiling, just watching. His face was pale and flat, almost blurry compared to the others. I assumed he was one of Daniel's coworkers, someone from his side I hadn't met. But the longer I stared, the stranger it felt. His clothes didn't fit the rest of the room, dark, old-fashioned, like a suit from another decade. And his eyes. God, his eyes were on me, even though Daniel was right in front of him. Even though everyone around us was laughing, that man's eyes were locked on me, straight through the camera lens. When Daniel got home, I showed him the picture. "Do you know who that is?" I asked. He leaned over, squinting. "Probably one of the photographer's assistants or something. He's not in the other shots." Daniel shrugged. "Maybe he moved." But I went through all of them, every angle, every candid, and there he was. Not in every photo, but enough to make my chest tighten. Always on the edge of the frame, standing by a window, behind a group, sitting at a table, never smiling, never looking at anyone else, always staring at me. That night I couldn't sleep. The photos were still spread out on the kitchen table, and the thought of them sitting there made my skin crawl. I got up around 2 in the morning, intending to put them away. When I reached the table, the air felt colder. The clock on the wall had stopped. 1:47 a.m., frozen in silence. I gathered the pictures into a pile, trying not to look, but one of them slipped out and fluttered to the floor. It landed face dash up. It wasn't one I remembered printing. It showed Daniel and me standing together in front of the reception hall doors. Except, behind us, through the glass, I could see him again. The same man. Only this time, he wasn't at a distance. He was right behind the door, close enough to touch the glass. His hand was raised, palm pressed against it, and his reflection didn't match the angle of the light. The next morning, I showed Daniel the photo. He frowned. "That's not one of ours. It was on the table. Maybe it got mixed in with the proofs." He tried to sound calm, but his eyes gave him away. He looked scared. We went through the digital files together, all 648 of them. That photo wasn't in any of them. Neither was the man. Not in the originals. Not in the backups. I printed one myself, just to be sure. Blank background. No man, but in the printed copies from the wedding photographer, he was there. Always there. Daniel stopped talking about it after that. Said we were feeding into paranoia. But I couldn't let it go. I started studying them at night, one by one. I noticed little differences, things I'd missed before. In the first photo, he was by the window. In the next, closer. Then by the table. Then the door. By the last one, He was almost next to me, and in the very last shot, the one of Daniel and me kissing on the dance floor, his face was partially obscured by my veil, like he was standing behind me. A week later, Daniel suggested I take a break from looking at the pictures. "You're working yourself up," he said. "It's probably a digital artifact." But then I caught him one night, in the living room, flipping through the album himself. The way he looked at them, pale tense, told me he saw it too. When he noticed me watching, he slammed it shut. I said, "Stop looking," he snapped. That was the first time he ever raised his voice at me. After that, things got strange. Little things at first. The living room lights flickering at 1:47 a.m., always the same time. The hallway mirror fogging up on its own. Then bigger things. One morning, the framed photo on the mantel was cracked straight down the middle. Not shattered, just a single clean line dividing us in half. Daniel swore it wasn't him, but I found a sliver of glass in his jacket pocket that night. When I asked him about it, he stared at me blankly and said, "I don't remember." I started having nightmares. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, convinced someone was standing at the foot of the bed. Once, I swear I saw him, that same man from the photos, standing in the doorway. Just a faint outline in the dark. When I blinked, he was gone, I told Daniel. He didn't look surprised. "I've seen him too," he said quietly. "In the mirrors." I waited for him to laugh, to tell me he was joking, but he just sat there, hands shaking. "I think he follows the photos," he whispered. "We should burn them." We burned them that night, every print, every frame, every copy. The smoke was thick and bitter, the air heavy with melted plastic. When the last one curled into ash, Daniel exhaled, trembling. "It's over," he said, but at WASN single quotes. The next day a new envelope arrived in the mail, no return address. Inside were 3 photographs, all of them taken from inside our house. One of me, brushing my hair in the bedroom, one of Daniel at the kitchen counter, and one of us sleeping, the man from the wedding standing behind the bed, half shrouded in shadow. His hand was resting on Daniel's shoulder. Daniel tore them up immediately, shouting that someone was stalking us, that we needed to call the police. But when the cops came, they found nothing. No signs of forced entry, no fingerprints, no camera devices. They checked our phones, our laptops, nothing suspicious. The photos, they said, could have been doctored. The word doctored stuck with me. That night, I went through our old wedding flash drive again. I opened one of the untouched video files, the ceremony, full length, and there he was, not in the background this time, in the front row, right behind my parents. He never moved, never blinked, just stared at me through the entire recording. Daniel lost it after that. He stopped eating, stopped sleeping, said he felt someone standing behind him all the time. He kept every mirror in the house covered, taped the windows shut, disconnected the doorbell camera, but none of it helped, because the thing wasn't outside anymore. It was in every photo we took. I'd snap a picture of the cat, he'd be there, standing in the corner, a mirror selfie there, behind my shoulder. Even screenshots from video calls started showing his shape in reflections. I deleted everything, every file, every image. Still, the next morning, the photos would be back in my gallery. One night, Daniel woke me up, shaking. "He's here," he whispered. His eyes were wide, unfocused. "Where?" He pointed toward the corner of the room. "Right there." The air was freezing. My breath fogged in front of me. The shadows looked thicker than usual, layered, like something was standing just behind them. I couldn't see his face, but I felt it, watching, waiting. Daniel grabbed my hand and whispered, "Don't look directly at him." But I did, and for half a second, I saw him clearly. The man's face was Daniel's, not exactly older, gaunter, but still unmistakably him. Same jawline, same eyes. He smiled, then everything went black. When I woke up, Daniel was gone. His side of the bed was cold, the front door wide open. His car was still in the driveway, his phone on the counter. But he was nowhere. The police said he probably ran off in a panic. They didn't believe me when I showed them the photos. How the man had slowly gotten closer in each one. How he'd looked more like Daniel every time. That was 6 months ago. The police never found him. The case went cold. I moved out, changed numbers, got a new apartment in another city. I thought I could start over, but 2 weeks ago, I went to update my driver's license photo at the DMV. When the clerk handed me the print, my stomach dropped. There he was again, blurry, faint, standing behind me in the background. Same dark suit, same stare. Only this time, his face looked exactly like Daniel's. It's gotten worse since then. Every photo taken of me, work ID, receipts, group shots, he's there. Sometimes behind me, sometimes right next to me. My reflection in the microwave flickers now. My shadow bends the wrong way when I walk past the window. And last night, I found an envelope slipped under my door. Inside was a single photograph. It was of a wedding. Not mine, but close. The same decorations, the same dress, same hall, except in this version, Daniel wasn't the groom. He was standing off to the side, in the background, and I was the one smiling beside someone else, someone whose face I couldn't quite make out. The man in the background looked directly into the camera, and his expression was almost sad, like he knew what came next. I don't sleep much now. Every night, around 1:47 a.m., the lights flicker, the mirror fogs up. Sometimes I hear the faint click of a camera shutter. I stopped taking photos entirely, but it doesn't matter. They still appear. On my desk, in my phone, in the reflection of my laptop screen, each one closer, each one clearer. Tonight, there's a new one taped to my front door. It's of me, sitting here writing this. And behind me, I can see a figure reflected in the window. He's standing right behind my chair. I don't turn around anymore, because every time I do, he looks a little more like me. The first time I heard the knocking, I thought it was the pipes. It was just after midnight, the kind of hour when the whole house feels too quiet, like the walls are holding their breath. I was in bed, half asleep, when 3 slow knocks came from beneath the floor. Not loud, but heavy, hollow. I froze, listening. Nothing followed. Just the faint hum of the fridge downstairs and the old clock ticking in the hallway. I told myself it was plumbing, or the wood shifting from the cold. But that sound, it didn't echo like pipes or creaks. It sounded deliberate, like someone was knocking from under the house. The next morning, I went down to check our basement. Always made me uneasy. The air down there was different, thick and stale, like it hadn't been breathed in years. The stairs groaned when you stepped on them, and the light switch only worked half the time. I flicked it a few times before it stayed on. A dim yellow bulb swinging above the cement floor. The space was small, maybe 20 feet across, with low ceilings and exposed beams. Nothing unusual. Just old storage boxes, paint cans, the water heater humming in the corner. But the basement door itself, the one leading down from the kitchen, had been slightly open, and I never leave it open. I brushed it off and went about my day. But that feeling followed me. That quiet, heavy kind of dread that sits in your chest and won't leave. That night. The knocking came again, 2 knocks this time. Slow. Rhythmic. I sat up in bed, heart hammering, staring at the dark ceiling. My husband Mark slept through it like always. He could sleep through a fire alarm. I whispered his name. Mark. Nothing. When it stopped, I counted to 30 before getting up. My bare feet hit the cold wood floor as I stepped into the hallway. The air felt wrong, colder near the stairs. I grabbed the flashlight from the kitchen drawer and opened the basement door. The smell hit me first. Damp wood, old dust, and something faintly metallic, like rust. I shined the light down the steps. Nothing moved. The bulb at the bottom flickered once, then went out completely. For a moment, the darkness felt alive, like it was waiting for me to come down. Then I heard it again, knock, knock, soft, but close. I slammed the door and locked it. By the next morning, I had convinced myself I was imagining things. Mark teased me when I told him. "It's probably raccoons or something," he said, smiling. "You've been watching too many true crime videos again." He promised to check it after work. He didn't. That night, the knocks came again, louder this time, and this time, they didn't stop. It started with the same rhythm, slow and steady, then grew frantic, like whatever was down there wanted out. Mark woke up finally, groggy and irritated. "Jesus, what is that?" "I told you," I whispered. "It's coming from the basement." We both listened, then silence. He got up, muttering, and headed for the kitchen. I followed, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. He grabbed a flashlight, unlocked the door, and disappeared down the steps. I waited at the top, gripping the handle, listening to his footsteps creak lower and lower until they stopped. "Mark." No answer. "Do you see anything?" Then, faintly, "There's something here." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" But before he could answer, the light blinked out, and something slammed the door from inside, hard enough to make the frame shudder. I screamed his name and yanked the door open, but the basement was pitch black. "Mark." My voice echoed off the walls. No reply. I ran to the top of the stairs, flashlight shaking in my hand, and aimed it down. The beam caught something on the floor, his flashlight, rolling slowly in a circle. No sign of him. Then the knocking started again. This time, it came from behind the wall, at the bottom of the stairs. The police came 20 minutes later. They searched the basement top to bottom. No mark, no struggle, nothing out of place. They said he must have gone out looking for help, or got turned around in the dark and left. But that made no sense. There's only one way out of the basement, the door I'd been standing at the whole time. They told me to call if he didn't come back by morning. He didn't. The next few days were a blur of search teams, flyers, questions. No one found him. They said people sometimes just disappear, but I knew that wasn't true, because on the third night, the knocking came back. It started softly again. 3 knocks, pause, then 2 more, like a code. I sat in bed frozen, the sound echoing up through the floor. I whispered into the dark Mark, and then I swear to God, I heard him whisper back, "Let me out." I ran downstairs, shaking, half believing I was dreaming. I pressed my ear to the door. His voice came again, muffled but clear. "Please, it's cold. Open the door." My hand was on the lock before I stopped myself. "Where are you?" I whispered. "In the basement. Please, hurry." I could barely breathe. The voice was right, but off, flat, hollow, like it was coming through a wall or a speaker. "Mark," I said, trembling. "Tell me something only you'd know." A pause. Then, "Your birthday." "March 10th. My throat tightened. "What's our cat's name?" He hesitated. "We don't have a cat." "We do. We've had her for 6 years. That's when I stepped back from the door. The knocking came again, louder, frantic. "Please, please, let me out." I turned and ran upstairs, locking myself in the bedroom. The knocks didn't stop for hours. The police came again the next morning. I didn't tell them about the voice. They already thought I was losing it. They checked the basement again. Nothing, but one of the officers, an older man, looked uneasy when he came back up. He said quietly, "There's a door down there, hidden behind the shelves. Looks sealed up. You know anything about that?" I shook my head. They said they'd come back with tools to open it the next day. That night, I didn't sleep. Every sound in the house made me jump. When the knocking started again, it was louder than ever. And this time, it came from both sides of the floor, from below, and from the hallway, like something was moving between the walls. I sat there, frozen, clutching the phone, when I heard footsteps, slow, dragging, coming up the basement stairs. The door handle rattled once, then twice. I couldn't move. The lock clicked slowly, deliberately, and the door creaked open. My breath caught. Something stepped into the hallway. I couldn't see it. The light was too dim, but I could hear it. Wet footsteps, shallow breathing, then a whisper. "You should have opened the door sooner." I ran to the bedroom and slammed it shut. The footsteps stopped outside. The air went still. Then, slowly, the handle began to turn. I called 911, whispering into the phone, trying not to make a sound. They said help was on the way. When the police arrived, the door was closed again. No one was there, but muddy footprints led from the basement to the top of the stairs and back down again. The next morning, they opened the sealed door. It wasn't a second room. It was a passage, narrow, dirt-walled, leading deeper under the house. It ended at another door, wooden, old. On the other side they found a small chamber, bare floor, brick walls, and in the middle of it, a chair with restraints bolted to the arms. They said it looked like it had been there for decades. No one knew why the house had been built over it. They took photos, samples, all that, but they didn't stay long. The officer who opened the second door said it smelled like something dead and old. That night, I slept at a friend's. I didn't want to go back, but when I finally returned the next afternoon, the house felt wrong. The air heavier, the shadows thicker. I tried to convince myself it was just nerves. I made coffee, opened the blinds, turned on the TV. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement by the basement door. It was open, just a few inches. The air that drifted up was freezing. I stepped closer, heart pounding. "Mark?" No answer. Then I heard a faint scraping sound, like someone dragging a chair. I backed away slowly, grabbed my keys, and ran out of the house. The police searched again. Nothing. They said, maybe. I forgot to close the door, but I know I didn't. And the next day, I found something that proved it. In the dirt outside, under the kitchen window, were footprints, barefoot, too large to be mine. They led from the foundation, walled straight into the woods. But there was only one set, no return tracks. I moved out the next week, left everything behind. I still get calls from the property manager about that house. The last tenant only lasted 3 months. She said the same thing, knocking at night, footsteps on the stairs, whispers through the vents. She even sent me a photo once. It showed the basement door wide open, light spilling up the steps, and in the darkness below, something standing halfway up, one hand on the railing. The photo was blurry, but I could make out its face. It looked like Mark, but his skin was gray, and his eyes were hollow, like something wearing him. I changed my number after that, stopped answering emails, tried to move on, but it's been almost a year now, and I still hear it sometimes, wherever I live. It finds me. 3 slow knocks. Always, just after midnight, sometimes. If I'm quiet enough, I can hear his voice through the floorboards. "Please. It's cold. Let me out." I stopped responding months ago, but last night, something changed. The knocking didn't come from below this time. It came from the closet. I opened it, shaking. And there, pressed against the back wall, was a door I'd never seen before. Wooden. Old. My breath fogged in the air as I stepped closer. From the other side, a voice whispered, "I found you." The knocking hasn't stopped since, and I think, this time, if I open it, he won't ask to come out. He'll already be inside. The first time I noticed it, I thought he was sick. His voice just didn't sound right. It was a Tuesday morning, cold gray light seeping through the kitchen blinds. Mark was sitting at the table, scrolling through his phone, like he always did. Same hoodie, same half-empty coffee cup, same everything. But when he said morning, it came out lower, slower. like someone else was trying to sound like him and hadn't quite gotten it right. It wasn't enough to freak me out. Not yet. People's voices change when they're tired or congested. But that sound, the weight of it, stuck in my head all day. When I got home from work, it was still off. He was on the couch watching TV, but when I said hi, his answer felt wrong. Too calm, too practiced. "You okay?" I asked. He turned his head slowly, toward me, eyes half-lidded, smile soft but delayed, like he had to think about doing it. "Yeah," he said. His tone was deeper again, smooth, steady, with a faint vibration that made the hairs on my neck stand up. "Just tired. That's all. Just tired." But I couldn't stop thinking about it, how his words didn't fit the way his mouth moved, like they were being played from a second too late. The next morning, I caught him humming in the shower. I'd never heard him hum before. It was this low, repetitive tune, like an old lullaby, and the way it echoed through the thin bathroom door made my stomach turn. I couldn't place the melody, but it didn't sound random. It sounded familiar. When he came out, steam rolling into the hallway, I asked what song it was. He just stared for a second, then said, "What song?" "You were humming." "No, I wasn't." I laughed nervously, but his expression didn't change. His eyes didn't blink. He just stood there, damp hair sticking to his forehead, watching me too long. Then, quietly, he said, "Maybe you heard someone else." And he smiled a tight, uncomfortable smile before walking away. By Thursday, I started noticing more. He wasn't eating much. He'd stare at his plate 4 minutes before taking a bite. Sometimes he'd chew without swallowing, just moving his jaw, slow and mechanical. At night, I'd wake up to the sound of him whispering in his sleep, only it didn't sound like sleep talking. It was rhythmic. Muted words, low and deliberate, like a prayer. I'd nudge him and he'd stop instantly. Not stir, not mumble. Stop. Then, one night, I caught him standing in the dark by the window, whispering again. The blinds were open, and his reflection in the glass looked wrong, stretched by the faint glow of the streetlights. I could see his lips moving, but the voice I heard didn't line up. It sounded deeper, disembodied, like it came from somewhere behind him. When I said his name, he turned sharply. His eyes were open, but blank. He looked right through me. Then he blinked once, slowly, and said in his normal tone, "Couldn't sleep." He walked past me, brushing my shoulder. His skin was cold. I started recording him. I know how that sounds, but I needed proof. Something to show him, or maybe a doctor, if this got worse. I hid my phone on the nightstand before bed and pressed record. When I played it back the next morning, most of it was quiet, just our breathing. Then, around 2:13 a.m., I heard it, whispering at first. It was hard to make out short bursts, like he was repeating something. Then it grew clearer. "I see you." Pause. "I see you." The same phrase, again and again. And then, after almost 3 minutes of silence, another voice joined in, higher, harsher. "I see you." The second voice sounded close to the microphone, too close. When I looked over at him that morning, he was already awake, sitting upright in bed, staring at nothing. I asked if he'd had a nightmare. He said no. Then he smiled and said, "You should delete that recording." I hadn't told him about it. By the weekend I couldn't deny it anymore. It wasn't a cold. It wasn't stress. It wasn't him. He still looked like Mark. Still had the same face, same haircut, same hands. But he moved differently now. Slower, smoother. Like his body was following someone else's rhythm. And the way he looked at me felt studied. Like he was learning how to look human. I told myself I was losing it. But then I found something. His phone, left unlocked on the counter. He never left it unlocked. There were no messages, no photos, no contacts. Just one voice memo titled, "Practice." I pressed play. For the first few seconds, it was just static. Then I heard breathing. shallow, controlled, and his voice muttering over and over, "Say it right, say it right, say it right." Then, louder, clearer, "Hi, I'm Mark." Silence. Then again, "Hi, I'm Mark." Each time, the tone shifted slightly, like he was tuning it. The pauses between words grew shorter, smoother, until it was perfect, the same calm, natural sound I'd heard every day for years. And then a second voice, faint, but distinct, whispered back, "Better." I dropped the phone. That night, I locked the bedroom door. I told him I wasn't feeling well and needed to sleep early. He smiled and said, "Of course." His tone was too even. No warmth. Hours later, I woke to a soft scraping sound. The doorknob was turning slowly. "Babe," he whispered. His voice was deeper again, vibrating through the wood. "You locked the door." I didn't answer. My heart was pounding so hard I thought he'd hear it. After a long pause, he chuckled, low, steady, humorless. "You don't have to do that." Then, in that same smooth voice, his voice, he said, "It's me." But it wasn't. I could hear it. It sounded like a recording. Then he knocked once, soft, deliberate, and walked away. I didn't sleep. The next morning I packed a bag while he was in the shower. I told myself I'd stay at my sister's, clear my head, maybe come back when things felt normal. But as I zipped my suitcase, I heard him start humming again, that same slow lullaby. This time though, it wasn't muffled by the door. He was standing in the hallway. I froze. He was still dripping wet, water running down his neck, smiling that too tight smile. Going somewhere. His voice was calm, steady, perfect. I forced a laugh. Just a few days with my sister. He tilted his head slightly, eyes flicking to the bag. "You didn't tell me." "I texted her earlier," I said quickly. "You were asleep." He nodded slowly. "You should have told me." Then, after a pause, he added softly, "I don't like when things change without warning." Something about the way he said it made my stomach twist. I brushed past him, muttering something about traffic. He didn't move, just watched me all the way to the door. As I reached for the handle, he said, "Be careful out there." I turned. "Why?" He smiled wider. "People sound different when they come back." I didn't come back that night, or the next. My sister thought I was overreacting, said maybe he was going through something and needed help. I agreed, even though I knew that thing in my house wasn't Mark anymore. Still, I couldn't stop worrying. What if he hurt himself? What if there was something wrong medically? So on the third day, I went back. The house was quiet when I got there. Too quiet. The blinds were closed, the air stale. His car was in the driveway, but the living room looked untouched. "Mark," I called. No answer. I walked through the kitchen, heart pounding. Everything felt still. Then I saw it, a line of wet footprints leading from the bathroom to the basement door. The prints stopped there. The door was open a few inches. I almost left right then, but I needed to know. I grabbed my phone flashlight and stepped down slowly, the air growing colder with each step. The smell hit me halfway down, damp and metallic, like rust and mold at the bottom. The light caught something on the wall, a long mirror, cracked down the center, and written across it, in something dark and smeared, were the words, "Say it right." My throat tightened. From somewhere behind me, a voice said, "You came back." I spun around, shining the light toward the sound. Mark stood in the corner, half in shadow. His skin looked pale, almost translucent, like he hadn't seen sunlight in days. "Mark," I whispered. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You shouldn't have left," he said. His tone was soft, but wrong again, low, resonant, vibrating in my chest. "What's happening to you?" I asked, backing away. He stepped closer, moving too smoothly, like he was gliding instead of walking. "I'm learning," he said. Learning what? He tilted his head, eyes locked on mine. How to sound human. My flashlight flickered. The room dimmed. His voice dropped even lower, vibrating like it was coming from the walls themselves. You almost got it right too, he said, but you keep saying my name wrong. I'm saying it the same, he interrupted, suddenly louder. No. The lights went out completely. I heard movement, quick, heavy, circling me. Then his voice again, close to my ear this time. Say it right? Something cold brushed my neck. I screamed and ran up the stairs, slamming the door behind me. I didn't stop until I was in my car, shaking, watching the house through the windshield. No lights, no movement, just the faint outline of the open door. The police searched. They found nothing. No mark, no footprints. No mirror. They said maybe he left before I arrived. Maybe the stress was making me misremember. But I know what I heard, and I know what I saw, because sometimes, late at night, I still get calls from his number. At first, there's just breathing, then a pause, and then his voice calm, perfect, familiar says, "You're not saying it right." Sometimes he calls my sister, too. She told me, the voice sounds exactly like mine. Last night, I heard a whisper outside my window, my own voice, soft and steady, asking him to let me in. The first time I realized my husband was living another life, I was standing in our kitchen, staring at his second phone. It was a cheap black flip phone, the kind no one uses anymore. I found it hidden under the loose board beneath the sink, tucked in a Ziploc bag beside a single house key and a folded receipt from a gas station 2 towns over. The battery was dead, but the weight of it in my hand felt wrong, heavy, like a secret. I didn't even remember why I'd been cleaning under there. Maybe I wasn't. Maybe I'd been looking for something without realizing it. Either way, the moment I saw it, my stomach dropped because I knew it didn't belong to me. And Mark never mentioned owning another phone that night. I tried to act normal. I made dinner, poured wine, asked about his day, but every time he spoke, I caught myself staring at his mouth, wondering if he'd ever told me the truth about anything. He was his usual self, tired from work, polite, smiling in the right moments. But once you start looking for lies, you can't stop seeing them. His eyes didn't meet mine when he said he loved me. His laugh sounded practiced, almost hollow, and when his phone, the real one, buzzed on the counter, he flinched before answering it. He said it was work. I believed him for exactly 5 seconds, because I could see the name reflected on the wine glass between us, unknown. I waited until he fell asleep. His breathing was slow and even. His back turned to me. Then I slid out of bed, grabbed the flip phone, and plugged it into the charger from his nightstand. The moment it powered on, I felt my pulse start to race. 5 missed calls. 3 text messages, all from the same number. The messages were short, "Still coming tomorrow. You didn't answer. I'll leave the light on." No names, no emojis, nothing to trace. I checked the call log. The same number had been calling every few nights for weeks. I thought about waking him up right then, slamming the phone onto his chest, demanding answers. But I didn't, because a small, shaking part of me wanted to know the truth before he had a chance to lie. The next evening, I followed him. He said he had to run to the office, but his tone was too casual, like someone who'd practiced that line before. I waited 5 minutes, then grabbed my keys and went after him. The streets were quiet, the kind of cold where the air tastes metallic. His car was easy to spot, a dark gray Honda with one busted taillight. He didn't drive toward the city. He turned down the old highway instead, the one that led to nowhere, but empty farmland and shuttered gas stations. I followed from a distance, headlights off. After 20 minutes, he pulled into a dirt road I didn't recognize. There was a small white house at the end, one porch light glowing in the dark. He parked, got out, and walked up the steps. The door opened before he could even knock. A woman stood there. She looked young, maybe my age, maybe younger, wearing a sweater and holding a child on her hip. The little boy reached for Mark, and Mark smiled, the kind of smile he hadn't given me in months. Then he stepped inside. I sat there for a long time, gripping the steering wheel until my hands hurt. I couldn't breathe right. My chest felt hollow, my ears ringing. Part of me wanted to storm up there and scream. Another part wanted to throw the car into reverse and never come back. Instead, I waited. An hour passed, then 2. When he finally came out, he kissed the woman on the forehead, said something to the boy, and got into his car. I didn't follow him home. I couldn't. He didn't mention it. Not the next day, or the next. He kissed me goodbye in the morning like nothing had changed. He texted me from work, called me babe, told me to pick up. Milked out. Every gesture was perfect. Too perfect. And that's when it hit me. He wasn't lying because he was cheating. He was lying because he was practicing. I went back to the White House 2 days later. The woman opened the door like she'd been expecting someone. When she saw me, her smile froze. I said, "You don't know me, but I'm Mark's wife." Her face went pale. "I'm sorry, who?" "Mark," I said. "Tall, dark hair, gray Honda." She shook her head slowly, eyes darting to the side. "You must be mistaken." But her hand tightened on the doorframe. I pushed it open a little farther. "I saw him here, Tuesday night. You were holding a kid." She looked at me for a long moment before whispering, "Please leave." Then she shut the door. I stood there in the cold until I noticed something. A second car parked around the side of the house, same model as his, same color, same broken tail light, but the license plate was different. That night, I confronted him. He was sitting on the couch, reading something on his tablet. I said, "Who is she?" He looked up slowly. "Who? The woman? The one with the kid? The one you visit when you're not at work?" He blinked, then set the tablet down carefully. "What are you talking about?" I laughed. This sharp, ugly sound. "Don't play dumb. I followed you." His expression didn't change. "You must have seen someone else." I slammed the flip phone down on the table. "I saw you, Mark." He stared at it for a long time, like he didn't recognize it. Then he looked at me and said, "Where did you get that?" "Under the sink." He smiled faintly. "You shouldn't go through my things. That's all you have to say." I shouted, "You're lying to me. You have another phone, another house, another family." He stood up slowly, his face completely calm. "You don't understand. Then make me understand." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "You'll always do this. You imagine things when you get anxious." I took a step back. "I'm not imagining anything." He tilted his head slightly, almost curious. "Aren't you?" Something about his tone made my stomach twist, and then he said, so quietly I almost missed it, "She told you to leave, didn't she?" My throat went dry. "What did you just say?" He smiled again, soft, knowing. "You shouldn't have gone there." That night, I didn't sleep. I locked the bedroom door and left a light on, around 3 a.m. I woke up to a faint clicking sound. It was coming from the hallway. I held my breath. The doorknob turned once. Then again. "Babe," he whispered. "Why is the door locked?" I didn't answer. He knocked, lightly. "Come on, open up." His voice was calm, patient. Then, after a long pause, he said, "You're not safe in there." The way he said it, soft, almost affectionate, made my skin crawl. I whispered, "Go away." He laughed quietly, under his breath. Then, I heard him walk downstairs, but a few seconds later, I heard his voice again. Only this time, it was coming from inside the bedroom. "Why are you crying?" I turned on the light so fast I nearly broke the switch. The room was empty. No one in the corner. No one at the door. but his voice was still there, low, close, like someone speaking directly into my ear. "Don't be afraid." I screamed and ran for the bathroom, slammed the door, and locked it. The whispering stopped. For a few minutes, all I could hear was my own breathing. Then something scratched the other side of the door, slow, deliberate, not like fingernails, like metal. I must have passed out, because when I opened my eyes, sunlight was leaking through the blinds. Mark was gone. His car wasn't in the driveway. His clothes were gone from the closet. Even his toothbrush was missing. There was no note, no trace he'd ever lived here. I called his work. They said he'd resigned 2 days ago. The woman at HR sounded confused when I said his name. "We don't have anyone by that name in our system," she said. "Are you sure you have the right company?" I checked his LinkedIn, his email, his bank accounts. Everything was gone. Every trace of him had been wiped. I called the woman from the White House. She didn't answer, so I drove there again. The house was empty, windows boarded, mail piled at the door. When I peeked through a crack in the boards, I saw something inside, a single chair, and on the floor beside it, a small flip phone, same kind as the one I found. When I picked it up, the screen lit up automatically. One new message: "You weren't supposed to find out." Then it powered off. That was a week ago. Since then, strange things keep happening. Every night, I hear footsteps in the hallway, soft, careful, like someone walking just to the edge of the bedroom door and stopping. Sometimes I wake up to the sound of the shower running, but when I check, it's dry. Once, I found a set of keys on the kitchen counter I'd never seen before. Same model car as his. I thought about throwing them out, but I didn't, because part of me still hopes he'll come back, even if I'm terrified of what that really means. Last night, I dreamed about the White House. It was dark, except for one room, a faint light glowing from the window. I walked inside, barefoot. The floor was cold, damp. The chair was still there, but now someone was sitting in it. A man, back turned, wearing Mark's hoodie. When he spoke, the voice was his. But what he said didn't make sense. "You made me split too soon," he whispered. "It's harder this time." Then he turned around, and it wasn't Mark. Not exactly. It looked like him, same eyes, same hair, but something was off. His skin was too smooth, his movements too still, like a puppet waiting for strings. He smiled. "You shouldn't have come back." Then I woke up. The pillow beside me was damp, like someone had been sitting there. This morning, I checked the front porch. There was a small cardboard box waiting. No label, no delivery note. Inside was a phone. Another flip phone. It was already powered on. There was one message waiting in the inbox from Mark. I fixed it. "You'll understand soon." My hands were shaking so bad I nearly dropped it. Then it rang. No ringtone, just a single vibration that didn't stop. I pressed answer. A familiar voice came through the line. Calm, warm, exactly like his. But beneath it, faint and echoing, I could hear another version of his voice, whispering in sync, just a split second behind, like a recording played over itself. "Don't be scared," he said. "We can start over now. It's better this way." Then the line went dead. That was 12 hours ago. Now I'm sitting on the floor beside the bed, writing this because I can't sleep. The house feels colder tonight, the air heavier. I keep hearing that humming again, faint, low, somewhere in the walls. I tried unplugging everything, but it doesn't stop. Every few minutes, my phone buzzes. Each time, it's the same message. "You'll understand soon." And I think I do. Because sometimes, when I walk past a mirror, I catch glimpses that don't line up. My reflection's a half second behind, and once, I swear I saw two of me. The second one smiled. Now, when I hear his voice calling from the other room, I don't answer, because I can already hear it echoing inside my own. The first time I realized my husband was living another life. I was standing in our kitchen, staring at his second phone. It was a cheap black flip phone, the kind no one uses anymore. I found it hidden under the loose board beneath the sink, tucked in a Ziploc bag beside a single house key and a folded receipt from a gas station 2 towns over. The battery was dead, but the weight of it in my hand felt wrong, heavy, like a secret. I didn't even remember why I'd been cleaning under there. Maybe I wasn't. Maybe I'd been looking for something without realizing it. Either way, the moment I saw it, my stomach dropped, because I knew it didn't belong to me, and Mark never mentioned owning another phone. That night, I tried to act normal. I made dinner, poured wine, asked about his day. But every time he spoke, I caught myself staring at his mouth, wondering if he'd ever told me the truth. About anything. He was his usual self, tired from work, polite, smiling in the right moments. But once you start looking for lies, you can't stop seeing them. His eyes didn't meet mine when he said he loved me. His laugh sounded practiced, almost hollow, and when his phone, the real one, buzzed on the counter, he flinched before answering it. He said it was work. I believed him for exactly 5 seconds, because I could see the name reflected on the wine glass between us, unknown. I waited until he fell asleep. His breathing was slow and even. His back turned to me. Then I slid out of bed, grabbed the flip phone, and plugged it into the charger from his nightstand. The moment it powered on, I felt my pulse start to race. 5 missed calls, 3 text messages, all from the same number. The messages were short. Still coming tomorrow. You didn't answer. I'll leave the light on. No names. No emojis. Nothing to trace. I checked the call log. The same number had been calling every few nights for weeks. I thought about waking him up right then, slamming the phone onto his chest, demanding answers. But I didn't, because a small, shaking part of me wanted to know the truth before he had a chance to lie. The next evening, I followed him. He said he had to run to the office, but his tone was too casual, like someone who'd practiced that line before. I waited 5 minutes, then grabbed my keys and went after him. The streets were quiet, the kind of cold where the air tastes metallic. His car was easy to spot, a dark gray Honda with one busted taillight. He didn't drive toward the city. He turned down the old highway instead, the one that led to nowhere, but empty farmland and shuttered gas stations. I followed from a distance, headlights off, after 20 minutes. He pulled into a dirt road I didn't recognize. There was a small white house at the end, one porch light glowing in the dark. He parked, got out, and walked up the steps. The door opened before he could even knock. A woman stood there. She looked young, maybe my age, maybe younger, wearing a sweater, and holding a child on her hip. The little boy reached for Mark, and Mark smiled, the kind of smile he hadn't given me in months. Then, he stepped inside. I sat there for a long time, gripping the steering wheel until my hands hurt. I couldn't breathe right. My chest felt hollow, my ears ringing. Part of me wanted to storm up there and scream. Another part wanted to throw the car into reverse and never come back. Instead, I waited an hour past, then 2, when he finally came out. He kissed the woman on the forehead, said something to the boy, and got into his car. I didn't follow him home. I couldn't. He didn't mention it. Not the next day, or the next. He kissed me goodbye in the morning, like nothing had changed. He texted me from work, called me babe, told me to pick up milk. Every gesture was perfect. Too perfect. And that's when it hit me. He wasn't lying because he was cheating. He was lying because he was practicing. I went back to the White House 2 days later. The woman opened the door like she'd been expecting someone. When she saw me, her smile froze. I said, "You don't know me, but I'm Mark's wife." Her face went pale. "I'm sorry, who?" "Mark," I said. "Tall, dark hair, gray Honda." She shook her head slowly, eyes darting to the side. You must be mistaken. But her hand tightened on the door frame. I pushed it open a little farther. I saw him here, Tuesday night. You were holding a kid. She looked at me for a long moment before whispering, "Please leave." Then she shut the door. I stood there in the cold until I noticed something. A second car parked around the side of the house, same model as his, same color, same broken taillight, but the license plate was different. That night, I confronted him. He was sitting on the couch, reading something on his tablet. I said, "Who is she?" He looked up slowly. "Who? The woman? The one with the kid? The one you visit when you're not at work?" He blinked, then set the tablet down carefully. "What are you talking about?" I laughed. This sharp, ugly sound. "Don't play dumb. I followed you." His expression didn't change. "You must have seen someone else." I slammed the flip phone down on the table. "I saw you, Mark." He stared at it for a long time, like he didn't recognize it. Then he looked at me and said, "Where did you get that?" "Under the sink." He smiled faintly. "You shouldn't go through my things." "That's all you have to say," I shouted. "You're lying to me. You have another phone, another house, another family." He stood up slowly, his face completely calm. "You don't understand." "Then make me understand," he sighed, rubbing his temples. "You always do this. You imagine things when you get anxious." I took a step back. "I'm not imagining anything." He tilted his head slightly, almost curious. "Aren't you?" Something about his tone made my stomach twist, and then he said, so quietly I almost missed it, "She told you to leave, didn't she?" My throat went dry. "What did you just say?" He smiled again, soft, knowing. "You shouldn't have gone there." That night, I didn't sleep. I locked the bedroom door and left a light on, around 3 a.m. I woke up to a faint clicking sound. It was coming from the hallway. I held my breath. The doorknob turned once. Then again. "Babe," he whispered. "Why is the door locked?" I didn't answer. He knocked lightly. "Come on, open up." His voice was calm, patient. Then, after a long pause, he said, "You're not safe in there." The way he said it, soft, almost affectionate, made my skin crawl. I whispered, "Go away." He laughed quietly, under his breath. Then I heard him walk downstairs. But a few seconds later, I heard his voice again, only this time, it was coming from inside the bedroom. "Why are you crying?" I turned on the light so fast I nearly broke the switch. The room was empty. No one in the corner. No one at the door. But his voice was still there, low, close, like someone speaking directly into my ear. "Don't be afraid." I screamed and ran for the bathroom, slammed the door, and locked it. The whispering stopped. For a few minutes, all I could hear was my own breathing. Then something scratched the other side of the door, slow, deliberate, not like fingernails, like metal. I must have passed out, because when I opened my eyes, sunlight was leaking through the blinds. Mark was gone. His car wasn't in the driveway. His clothes were gone from the closet. Even his toothbrush was missing. There was no note, no trace he'd ever lived here. I called his work. They said he'd resigned 2 days ago. The woman at HR sounded confused when I said his name. "We don't have anyone by that name in our system," she said. "Are you sure you have the right company?" I checked his LinkedIn, his email, his bank accounts. Everything was gone. Every trace of him had been wiped. I called the woman from the White House. She didn't answer, so I drove there again. The house was empty, windows boarded, mail piled at the door. When I peeked through a crack in the boards, I saw something inside, a single chair, and on the floor beside it, a small flip phone, same kind as the one I found. When I picked it up, the screen lit up automatically. One new message: "You weren't supposed to find out." Then it powered off. That was a week ago. Since then, strange things keep happening. Every night, I hear footsteps in the hallway, Soft, careful, like someone walking just to the edge of the bedroom door and stopping. Sometimes I wake up to the sound of the shower running, but when I check, it's dry. Once, I found a set of keys on the kitchen counter I'd never seen before, same model car as his. I thought about throwing them out, but I didn't, because part of me still hopes he'll come back, even if I'm terrified of what that really means. Last night, I dreamed about the White House. It was dark except for one room, a faint light glowing from the window. I walked inside, barefoot. The floor was cold, damp. The chair was still there, but now someone was sitting in it. A man, back turned, wearing Mark's hoodie. When he spoke, the voice was his, but what he said didn't make sense. "You made me split too soon," he whispered. "It's harder this time." Then he turned around, and it wasn't Mark. Not exactly. It looked like him, same eyes, same hair, but something was off. His skin was too smooth, his movements too still, like a puppet waiting for strings. He smiled. "You shouldn't have come back." Then I woke up. The pillow beside me was damp, like someone had been sitting there this morning. I checked the front porch. There was a small cardboard box waiting. No label, no delivery note. Inside was a phone, another flip phone. It was already powered on. There was one message waiting in the inbox, from Mark. I fixed it. "You'll understand soon." My hands were shaking so bad I nearly dropped it. Then it rang. No ringtone, just a single vibration that didn't stop. I pressed answer. A familiar voice came through the line. .com. Warm, exactly like his. But beneath it, faint and echoing, I could hear another version of his voice, whispering in sync, just a split second behind, like a recording played over itself. "Don't be scared," he said. "We can start over now. It's better this way." Then the line went dead. That was 12 hours ago. Now I'm sitting on the floor beside the bed, writing this because I can't sleep. The house feels colder tonight, the air heavier. I keep hearing that humming again, faint, low, somewhere in the walls. I tried unplugging everything, but it doesn't stop. Every few minutes, my phone buzzes. Each time, it's the same message. "You'll understand soon." And I think I do, because sometimes, when I walk past a mirror, I catch glimpses that don't line up. My reflection's a half-second behind, and once, I swear I saw two of me. The second one smiled. Now, when I hear his voice calling from the other room, I don't answer, because I can already hear it echoing inside my own. The first thing I noticed was that she didn't cry. Everyone else did, his coworkers, his parents, even the pastor looked like he was holding it in. But the woman in the gray coat stood at the back of the church, hands folded neatly in front of her, face calm. She wasn't dressed like she belonged there. No black dress, no veil, no tissue clutched in trembling hands. Just that coat, buttoned up tight, and eyes that never left the casket. The weird part was, I almost recognized her. Mark died 3 weeks ago. Car accident. At least, that's what they told me. Rain, slippery road, single vehicle. They said it was quick. They didn't let me see him. Closed casket, they said. Too much trauma, the funeral director whispered gently. The way people whisper when they think you might break. I didn't. I couldn't, because part of me didn't believe he was gone. That's the thing about sudden death. Your mind won't accept it. Every sound, every shadow, you keep expecting to turn around and see them. That morning, I'd even heard his phone buzz on the kitchen counter. It was muscle memory, I guess, because I picked it up before realizing it was his. The screen lit up. One new message, no name, just a number I didn't recognize. "See you at the service." When I saw her in the church, I knew it was her. She was the sender. I don't know how I knew. I just did. The whole time the pastor spoke, she didn't move, didn't sit. Just stared at the closed coffin like she was waiting for something to happen. When I turned around to look again halfway through, she was gone. After the service, I couldn't stop thinking about her. I asked Mark's best friend if he knew who she was. He shook his head. Maybe from work, I said. He frowned. Mark didn't have any women at work, not ones who'd drive 3 hours for a funeral. I didn't tell him about the text. I didn't tell anyone, because deep down, I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house felt different, quieter, but not peaceful. The kind of quiet that hums, like static under your skin. Around 2 a.m., I heard it, a faint sound from downstairs, not loud enough to wake anyone else, just enough to raise the hair on your arms. It was a soft click, like a door latch dot. I grabbed my phone, crept out of bed, and went to the landing. The living room light was on. I remember turning it off before bed. I stood there for maybe a full minute, listening. Nothing. Then, from the kitchen, the refrigerator door creaked open. I almost called out his name. I swear I almost did. But when I stepped down the last stair and turned the corner, the room was empty. The fridge door was wide open, the light spilling onto the floor and on the counter beside it. Something that made my stomach drop. A gray glove, the same color as her coat. The next morning, I went to the police. They said it was probably someone who wandered in during the service. That grief can make you imagine connections that aren't there. But the glove was real. I showed them. They said they'd look into it. They didn't. I know, because 2 nights later, she came back. It started with the smell. Mark's cologne. The one he'd worn every day for years. Cedar, clean and sharp. It drifted down the hallway around midnight, faint but unmistakable. Then, the sound of footsteps on the hardwood, slow, careful. I sat up in bed, holding my breath. For a second, I thought maybe it was him. Maybe I'd wake up and find out this was all a bad dream. Then, I heard the whisper. Low, close, a woman's voice. I told him not to tell you. My chest went tight. Who's there? Silence. Then the smell faded, and the house was empty again. I tried to convince myself I was imagining it. Exhaustion, trauma, grief. But when I checked the security camera on the porch the next morning, there she was. The woman in the gray coat, standing in the middle of my yard, looking up at the house. The timestamp said 12:47 a.m., right? When I'd heard the whisper, I called the police again. They came, took the footage, told me to lock my doors. The next day, my front door was wide open when I got home. Nothing was stolen, nothing broken, except for one thing. Mark's photo, the one from our wedding, was gone. I didn't tell the police again. What was the point? Instead, I went back to the funeral home. I wanted to see the accident report, the coroner's notes, anything. But when I asked the director if I could view the file, he gave me this confused look. "We didn't handle your husband's body," he said. I blinked. "What do you mean?" "I was here for the arrangements." He frowned. "I remember the service, but the coroner never released the body to us." My stomach turned to ice. Then, whose body was in the casket? He didn't answer. That night, I tore through every drawer, every folder, every scrap of paperwork Mark had left behind. And that's when I found it. An envelope, hidden behind the dresser. My name on the front. Inside was a single photo, a selfie of Mark, smiling, and standing behind him, reflected in the mirror, was her, the same woman. Same coat. Her hand rested on his shoulder, except she wasn't looking at the camera. She was looking at him, and her expression wasn't loving. It was cold, possessive, like she was claiming him. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch, lights on, watching the front door. Around 3 a.m., I heard a faint tapping like fingernails on glass. It was coming from the window. When I turned, she was there, standing outside in the rain, hair plastered to her face, hand pressed to the glass. I froze. She smiled, small, slow, and mouthed something I couldn't hear. Then she lifted her hand and tapped once more. The sound was faint but sharp. When I blinked, she was gone. I packed a bag and went to stay with my sister. I told her everything. She didn't believe me. Not really, but she let me stay. For 2 nights, everything was quiet. Then her dog started barking at the hallway mirror. Low, constant growls, fur standing up. When I covered the mirror with a towel, he stopped, but the next morning, the towel was folded neatly on the floor, and the mirror was fogged like someone had breathed on it. In the condensation, 2 words were written with a fingertip: "He's mine." I went back to the police again, begged them to check if Mark's body was ever found. They ran a search. No record of him, no accident report, no death certificate, just nothing. It was like he'd vanished. I tried calling his number again, just to prove to myself it was over. It rang. Once, twice. Then someone answered. A woman. Her voice was calm. "He's not gone," she said. "He just doesn't belong to you anymore." I hung up and threw the phone across the room. It kept ringing anyway. That night, I dreamt of the church again. The casket was open this time. I walked down the aisle, heart pounding. When I looked inside, it wasn't Mark. It was me, my own face, my own hands folded neatly over a bouquet. And standing beside the coffin was the woman in the gray coat. She looked at me and said, "You should have stayed away." When I woke up, the house was freezing, and from downstairs, I heard that same soft click, the sound of a door opening. I found her in the kitchen. Not flesh and blood, not exactly. She was standing in the middle of the room, but the edges of her body shimmered, like heat rising off pavement. Her face was still calm, almost gentle. "You don't have to fight it," she said. "Fight what?" I whispered. Her smile widened. "He was never yours to keep." Then she stepped aside, and behind her, in the dark corner of the kitchen, someone else moved. Mark. Pale. Still, his eyes met mine. He opened his mouth like he wanted to speak, but what came out wasn't his voice, it was hers. "Now you understand." I ran. Don't remember leaving the house, just the cold rain on my face and the sound of my own heartbeat hammering in my ears. When I finally looked back, the lights in the kitchen were flickering, and through the window, I could see them, her hand on his shoulder again, both of them watching me. It's been 3 months. I moved out of state, got rid of everything that reminded me of him, photos, clothes, furniture. But last week, I got a letter in the mail, no return address. Inside was a funeral notice. Mark Dalton, memorial service. Saturday, 2 p.m., different city, different church. I don't know who sent it. I almost threw it away, but something in me needed to know if it was real, so I went. The church was smaller this time, barely half full, the same casket, the same flowers. But the moment I walked in, I saw her, back row, same gray coat. She looked straight at me and smiled. When the pastor began to speak, I realized something. No one else was looking at her. Not one person turned in her direction, like they couldn't see her at all. I tried to leave, but when I reached the door, she was standing there, close now, close enough that I could smell the faint scent of cedarwood. "Why me?" I whispered. She tilted her head. "You took him first." Then she brushed her fingers across my arm, cold, dry, and walked past me, toward the casket. She leaned over it, whispered something I couldn't hear, and vanished. Just like that. I thought it was over after that, but tonight, I got a call, unknown number. When I answered, there was silence at first, then, faintly, Mark's voice, "See you at the service." The line went dead. The obituary came out this morning, my name, my photo, and the date of a funeral that hasn't happened yet. The first time I heard it, I thought it was the wind, but it wasn't. It was a voice, muffled, low, and too steady to be the house creaking. It came from directly above Mithra, the ceiling just past the square attic door that always hung half ajar, swaying slightly when the heat came on. It said my name, once, quietly, and then everything in the house went silent. I stood there in the hallway, holding the laundry basket, frozen. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. The air felt thick, almost electric. The voice had been too clear to mistake for imagination. "Mark." I called up. My husband didn't answer. He wasn't home anyway. He'd left that morning for a work trip, one of those last-minute ones that had become more and more frequent lately. For a few seconds, I tried to convince myself I'd imagined it, but when I turned to walk away, I heard something else. A faint click, like the sound of an old cassette recorder being stopped. The attic in our house wasn't like the kind you picture in horror movies. It wasn't some sprawling cobweb-covered crawlspace full of antiques. It was small, claustrophobic, with wooden beams low enough to hit your head on, and a thin layer of pink insulation that made the air smell like dust and fiberglass. Mark had gone up there a few times after we moved, in checking wiring, cleaning vents, that kind of thing. I'd never gone up myself. Just the idea of that narrow ladder and the dark space above the ceiling always made me feel unwelcome. Still, I couldn't ignore that sound. I grabbed the flashlight from the kitchen drawer and stood beneath the attic door. The metal pull string dangled in front of me like a noose. I hesitated, whispering to no one, "It's just the wind." But the moment I reached up to pull it down, something heavy shifted above me, just one loud thunk, like someone moving a box. The sound came from directly over my head. I didn't open it. Not that day. Instead, I called Mark. He picked up after a few rings, sounding distracted. "Hey babe, what's up?" I told him I heard noises in the attic. He laughed. "Probably a squirrel or something. I'll check when I get back." "Mark," it said my name. That made him pause. I could hear muffled background noise on his end voices. "Maybe." Then, softer, "You're stressed. You haven't been sleeping." He wasn't wrong. Since he'd started traveling so much, sleep had been hard. Every creak of the floorboards, every car passing outside it, all felt amplified. "Maybe," I said. "Just come home soon, okay?" "Of course," he said. "Love you." He hung up before I could reply. That night, I dreamed about the attic. In the dream, I climbed the ladder and found Mark sitting cross-legged up there, in the dark, facing an old tape recorder. He was whispering into it. When I called his name, he turned around, but his face wasn't his. It was blank, smooth, like wet clay before it's shaped. He just kept whispering. When I woke up, it was still dark. The house was quiet, except for one faint sound, the steady, mechanical whir of something spinning above me. I couldn't take it anymore. By noon the next day, I'd convinced myself it was something explainably broken: fan, an animal, anything. I grabbed a chair from the dining room and pulled down the attic door. The wooden ladder unfolded with a dry creak. Dust drifted down like ash. The air that came out was cold. The smell hit me first, told metal and something sweet, like rotting fruit. I climbed halfway up before shining my flashlight around. Boxers, plastic bins, a few of Mark's tools, and then, at the far end, something small and square sitting on the floor. A cassette recorder. The red light on it blinked once, then stopped. It wasn't mine. We didn't even own tapes anymore. When I picked it up, I realized there was a label on the cassette inside written in small, blocky handwriting, Day 137. My stomach turned. There were more tapes in a small cardboard box beside it, stacked neatly, labeled in the same handwriting. Day 1, Day 2, all the way up to Day 136. They looked new, clean. I hesitated, then pressed play. At first, there was static, then Mark's voice, testing audio levels. he said, then a pause. She's downstairs right now, making coffee. My throat went dry. The sound of faint clinking followed the spoon in the mug. The sound I made every morning without thinking. She doesn't know I'm recording yet, he whispered, but she will, eventually. The next few seconds were quiet, except for his breathing. Then the tape clicked off. I felt sick. I picked up another tape, day 52, and played it. More static. Then his voice again. Lower this time. She keeps asking where I'm going. I think she knows something's wrong. Click. Day 78. She was awake last night. I could feel her watching me. I didn't move. Click. Day 109. She hears the recordings now. I think the house lets her. I turned it off. My hands were shaking so bad I nearly dropped it. That night, I couldn't stay in the house. I booked a cheap motel a few towns over. The room smelled like bleach and stale air, but at least it was silent. Or so I thought. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I shouldn't have answered. But fear and exhaustion make you stupid. When I picked up, there was no voice. Just static. Then, faintly, under the noise marks, whisper. Day 138. The line went dead. I didn't sleep at all after that. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I was going to pack what I needed and leave. When I got back to the house, everything felt off. The air was colder than before. The attic door was already open. The ladder unfolded, like someone was waiting for me, and on the floor beneath it, just inside the light from the window, was a new tape. Day 138. I didn't want to touch it, but I couldn't leave without knowing. I picked it up and pressed play. Static. Then his voice. She came back. My pulse spiked. She's listening. Now. Then a long pause. I have to finish. This. The sound of footsteps creaked across the attic floor. Then a faint metallic click, like a camera shutter. Then, whispered so close to the mic I could hear his breath. She's upstairs too. The tape ended. I dropped it and ran. I called Mark over and over, but he didn't answer. When I finally reached his company, they told me he'd quit 2 months ago. No one knew where he'd gone. For the next few days, I stayed with my sister. She didn't believe me, not really, but she could see I wasn't okay. She said maybe Mark had some kind of breakdown, that the tapes were just him unraveling. I almost believed her until the next morning, when I woke up. There was a tape recorder sitting on the kitchen counter. The red light was blinking. The cassette inside said, Day 139. I didn't touch it. I took it straight to the police. They kept it for evidence. Said they'd investigate. But 2 days later, one of the officers called me personally. Ma'am, I listened to the recording, he said. I need to ask. Do you have a twin sister? No, he hesitated. Then I don't understand. What? I asked. He cleared his throat. The voice on the tape, it's not your husband. It's you. I didn't go home after that. The police kept the tapes, or said they did. I never asked for them back. I moved into a small apartment on the edge of town and tried to start over. But the quiet followed me every night around the same time. The air in the room gets cold, and faintly, somewhere near the ceiling, I hear that same mechanical click, like a tape recorder starting up. Last week, I heard a knock at the door. It was late past midnight. I ignored it at first, but it came again, louder. When I finally looked through the peephole, no one was there. Just a small cardboard box on the floor. No label. Inside was another cassette. No handwriting this time. Just a date. Yesterday. Single quotes. As. I told myself not to play it, but curiosity is poison. When I pressed play, I almost dropped it, because the first sound wasn't static. It was my voice. I found another tape today, I said. I think he's still watching. Then, faintly in the background, another sound, footsteps. Coming closer. My recorded voice whispered, He's behind me right now. And then a scream. The tape ended. I didn't scream when I heard it, but I wanted to, because the voice didn't sound like fear. It sounded like realization, like the version of me on the tape finally understood something I hadn't yet, something I still don't. Last night, I dreamt of the attic again. This time, I was standing in front of the ladder. Looking up, the light from the bulb flickered, and I could see the edge of the recorder sitting there, red light blinking then. I heard breathing, but not from above, from behind me. When I turned, Mark was standing there. He looked the same as always, calm, clean-shaven, eyes steady. "I told you not to listen," he said. When I woke up, my pillow was damp, and the attic door in my new apartment, one I'd never opened, was hanging slightly open. I called the police again this morning. The officer I spoke to last time didn't answer. A woman picked up instead. She said there was no record of my case, no tapes, no missing person named Mark Dalton. When I insisted, she said quietly, "Ma'am, we've had this conversation before, multiple times." Then she hung up. It's past midnight now. The air is cold again. There's a faint hum from the ceiling, steady, mechanical, familiar. I can hear the click of the recorder turning on, but this time, it's louder, closer. Right above me. I'm writing this because I think I understand now. The tapes weren't recordings of the past. They were rehearsals. Practices, something someone was rewriting what happened, over and over, until it was perfect, until the roles switched, until I became the voice on the tape. The red light is blinking. Again, it's recording, and I can hear myself whispering through the ceiling. Not Mark, not static, just me, over and over. I told her not to listen. When I play the new tape tomorrow, I already know what it will say because I'm saying it right now.